These are a great gift because they're super cheap, but they're super cute. And you don't really need to fit it perfectly to size, unless someone's head is like suspiciously small or large. I don't know, my head's kind of big, but it fits my head. With a friend today, and then I woke up and remembered that it was supposed to rain pretty hard today, so we had to cancel, which was perfect because I kind of thought of a last minute Christmas gift idea for her. I guess I wasn't really planning on giving her a Christmas gift because I'm kind of only giving Christmas gifts to the really close people in my life, so like 2 or 3 people. But I realized that if I just could set aside some time, I already had the materials to craft something for her, and it would only take a few hours. So today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a bandana. Out of all of them, I'm most satisfied with this one, which is the most recent one that I crocheted just a few days ago. So I'm going to basically remake this one. What you'll need for this project is a thin size 1 super fine yarn. This one calls for a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, so that's what we're using. It's loops and threads wool-like simile lame, whatever that means. And the color of this one is beige, and it was only $4. So this is what it looks like. So for this project, like I said, you will need this yarn. Just get this yarn, okay? Make it simple. And get your 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, get your scissors, and your yarn needle for weaving in the ends. Because this yarn is so small and it's going to be a little hard to see, I'm going to start off this tutorial by using a completely different, thicker, bigger yarn, just so it's easy to see. And then eventually in the video, I'll just switch to this yarn. Alright, so we're going to start off with a magic ring. So you're going to want to hold your yarn like so. Maybe use your thumb to hold it in place. Then we're going to start wrapping it around our index and middle finger. Once we wrap it around the second time, we want there to be a cross at the top. And then we can just keep that in place using our pinky. And then we just have to put our hook upward into the top of the cross, hook the yarn, and then twist it under the cross so that now we have a little loop on our crochet hook. And then now we can just let go of the yarn except for our pinky. This pinky is our working yarn, and now we can just start holding our working yarn the way we normally would. I just hold it by wrapping it around my middle finger and then over my index finger, but just hold it however you hold your yarn normally. So now we're ready to start our crochet project and start crocheting into this ring. We'll start off by shaping our triangle, and how we will do that is by chaining up 2, then do a double crochet, I guess I should explain what a double crochet is, right? Okay. So we have our 2 chains, a double crochet, and then we need to do another double crochet. So a double crochet is just yarn over, insert it into the hole, yarn over again, and then pull it out of the hole. We have 3 loops around our hook, so then yarn over and pull through 2 of those loops, yarn over and pull through 2. We're counting our first 2 chains as a double crochet, like a fake double crochet. So now that we have our 3 double crochets, we're going to form the top of our triangle by chaining 2. And now we just have to remake this side symmetrically on the other side of the top of the triangle. So since these are 3 double crochets, even though the first one's a fake double crochet, we will make 3 double crochets on this side. So double crochet, and then twice more. So now it should look something like this. 3 double crochets, the little gap where the point of our triangle is going to start to form, and then 3 double crochets on this side. So at this point, it's a good time to start pulling the yarn that we started working with, the other end of it, and that will start to close our magic ring. You don't have to pull it all the way. In fact, it's kind of good if you leave just a little. It's good to leave a little bit, that way you know where the bottom of your project is. So I like to kind of just leave a small loop, but you can leave it a little bigger if you want. So this is kind of our first row. And now we're going to turn our work so that we can start working alongside going the other way. Because each row for this project is just going to be back and forth and back and forth. We're never going to really crochet along the bottom of the triangle until the very end. So turn our work like so that we can crochet going backwards on the path that we just did. So this row might get a little bit confusing, but once you understand this row, you pretty much understand how to do the entire pattern. So I'll try to go slow and just pay close attention. We'll always start our rows by chaining up 2. So 1, 2, and then we'll always make a double crochet right next to that 2 chains that we just made. And we'll put that double crochet inside the bottom of those 2 chains. So if you kind of just like pull out the yarn a little bit, you'll see this hole start to open up, which is the top of the stitch from the row below. That hole that I'm pointing at, if you look at it from the top, there should be 2 yarns like that kind of form a V, and that's how you know that that's where we're crocheting into. So make a double crochet into that hole. And now the pattern's going to get a little different. This pattern that I'm about to do is kind of what the bulk of the bandana is made out of. So we will chain 1, and then the next double crochet is not going to go into the top of a double crochet from the row below, but rather it's going to go into that entire hole. So kind of like below the top of the stitch, you'll find a bigger hole, and that's where we're going to double crochet into. It's not going to be this hole because that's like right under where we just made the double crochet. So find the next big hole after that. Then chain 1, and then double crochet into the next big hole. But before I do that, I just want to point out that this next big hole that we're going to work into is the top of our triangle. We know that because we can see that there's 1, 2, 3 double crochets on that side, and then 1, 2, 3 double crochets on the other side. So that's the top. The top is going to be a little different with each row. So let's make our first double crochet into that hole. And we're going to make 4 in total. So after you made the first double crochet, chain 1, then make the second one. And then we're going to chain 2, because that's how we'll keep up that point, so that as we continue to make more and more rows, it'll start to look more like a point and the whole thing will look more like a triangle. So after we chain 2, do the third double crochet inside the same hole, then chain 1, and then do the fourth double crochet into that same hole. Now we'll continue our pattern, so just chain 1, and then double crochet into the next big hole, which is right here on the other side of that double crochet from the row below. So we're finishing up this row, and one thing I like to do, at least towards the beginning of making a bandana, is always try to count the double crochets so I can make sure that each side of the top of the triangle is symmetrical. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets. Again, we're counting the first 2 chains as a double crochet. So now we should have 5 on the left. So we have 1, 2, 3, and we have to do 2 more. If you remember, we started off by chaining 2 and then immediately double crocheting right next to that first chain or first double crochet, which means that our last 2 double crochets will be right next to each other. And since we crocheted at the beginning, since we crocheted into the top of the stitch from the row below, we'll do the same thing when we end it. So instead of crocheting into this entire big hole right there, we're going to find the top of the stitch, which is going to be right here. And again, there should be like a V on top, and that's where we're going to crochet into. So don't forget that after this after the last double crochet that we just made, there needs to be a chain. But then into this last hole, we're going to make 2 double crochets right next to each other without a chain in between. And then we finished that row. So you can see it's starting to kind of look like a triangle, and as we make more rows, it'll look even more like a triangle. Hopefully you understood that last row, because that is the most confusing part of it. Like I said, if you understand that row, then you'll understand all the rows to come, because they're pretty much the exact same thing. But I'll show you at least 2 more rows in case you were still kind of confused. Maybe these next 2 rows will be a little bit easier to follow since we have more of the pattern to do. So flip our work so that we can crochet the opposite direction along the top of the triangle. And like I said, we'll always start by chaining up 2. And then our first double crochet will be at the bottom of those 2 chains into the top of the stitch from the row below. So not the big one, but the smaller one that's more towards the top. So double crochet in there. And now starts the main pattern. So chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole, chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole after that, chain 1, double crochet into the next hole after that, chain 1, and now the next hole that we're going to crochet into is the top of the triangle again. You can count the stitches from the row below. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So since that's the middle of the stitches, that's where we're going to crochet 4 double crochets. Make our first double crochet, chain 1, make the second double crochet, chain 2, make the third double crochet, chain 1, and then make the fourth double crochet. You should have 4 in the same hole, 2 chains in between the middle 2 double crochets. That way we can keep forming the point. And then just continue the pattern. So chain 1, double crochet into that next hole, chain 1, double crochet into that next hole, chain 1, double crochet into the next hole after that, and then when we make our last 2 double crochets, they will go into the top of the stitch from the row below, right there. Make 1 chain first, and then make 2 double crochets right next to each other without a chain in between. and we can see our triangle start to form. Let's turn our work. Actually, I like to turn it the other way. Chain up 2. Make a double crochet into the bottom of our 2 chains, which is the top of the stitch from the row below. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next big hole. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next big hole. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next big hole after that. Sorry, I know that this is repetitive, but I just want it to be extra clear for people that are having a hard time following patterns. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next big hole. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next big hole. Chain 1. We've reached the top of our triangle. It's also just easier to know where the top is as we keep going along because there are like these holes just following along throughout the middle of the triangle, and so it gets kind of easier to know where the top of our triangle is. Double crochet into that hole. We're going to do 4 in total. After the first double crochet, chain 1, do the second double crochet, then chain 2, then do the third double crochet, chain 1, and do the fourth double crochet into the same hole. Then we'll continue the main pattern on the other side. Chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole, chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole after that, chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole, chain 1, double crochet next to that, into the other hole. Sorry, I'm just like trying to figure out ways to word this differently. Also, I feel like I shouldn't say hole, I should say gap, because the word hole is just a little too suggestive these days. Sorry. Chain 1, double crochet into the next big hole, chain 1, and now we're ready to make our last 2 double crochets, not in the bigger hole, but in the top of the stitch. First double crochet, and then the second one right next to that into the same space. I feel like this is a good stopping place, and I feel like I've led you all through a thorough beginning, or at least I hope so, because now I'm kind of just leaving you on your own to finish however many rows you feel like works for your bandana. So how to count the rows is, well, you can kind of pull a little bit to reopen your magic ring, and the first row comes out of that ring, and it's just like the length of 1 double crochet. So that's the first row. This is the second row. This is the third row, and this is the fourth row. So we've completed 4 rows. For this one that I'm trying to recreate, I did 18 rows. You can make yours 18 rows big as well, or however big you feel like fits your head. But however many rows you decide to do with your bandana, I will meet you back here once you've finished them so I can show you how to finish your bandana, make the ribbon, which is super easy, and just finish the whole thing. So looking at the bottom side of your bandana, there should be a string coming out of it because that's where we started our magic ring. If I pull it a little, you can see that there's 6 double crochets coming out from that very small point. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double crochets. And so from the middle magic ring up to here or here is the length of the first row, which means that this is the length of the second row, this is the length of the third row, and so on. So if we count it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And now we've completed our 18 rows of our triangle. We're going to start by crocheting a ribbon that way, then we're going to crochet back in and then cross the bottom of our triangle, and then do the same thing on the other side and crochet the ribbon that way, and then go back in, and then that's going to be our final bandana. So just put your crochet hook back where you left it and chain up however many you want for your ribbon. For me, that's going to be 60 chains. Once you've crocheted your sequence of chains, we're going to start crocheting the other way. So I'm just going to kind of flip my work. And then we're just going to single crochet into every chain that we just made, starting from the second chain from our hook. And now that I've single crocheted into the last chain from our ribbon, we're going to start single crocheting along this side of our bandana. So this part's a little tricky, and I feel like there's not really a set pattern. Like I said, it's a lot of trial and error, so you might need to not necessarily follow along, but kind of just see what works for you. If you do follow along, and you can follow along, I guess, that would work too, but I don't know, it's a little hard to see where I'm pointing in this case, and if you find that by following along your bandana's not really turning out great, just kind of go on your own and try and see what works for you. So our objective is to single crochet in each of the holes that we find along the top of this bandana. Some of the holes seem like they're one hole, like this one, but there's actually 2 of them because there's a little yarn separating the 2 holes. So I'm going to try to show you how I will choose where to crochet into. I guess I should point out where I'm single crocheting. So I've just single crocheted into this space. So the next hole is right here. The next one after that will be right there. And then after that it'll be right here. Then the next hole is just right here. By the way, when I did my last bandana that is pretty much exactly this one, it's the same color, when I did that bandana, I did not follow what I'm doing now. It was more of a trial and error, and I kind of did 2 single crochets into some holes and 1 single crochet into some holes. But I already tried this version out just to see what the easiest way to explain this would be, and this seemed to work pretty well, so that's why I found a way to kind of clean it up. But that's just kind of, or I'm just mentioning that as proof that you don't necessarily need to follow this, and there's other ways to do it that can still turn out really well. So I just single crocheted into here, and the next one will be right there next to it. And then it's going to be this one. And then right there. And so on. With my magic ring, I just like to do one single crochet inside of it. If your magic ring is pulled all the way tight, you just need to pull it back out in order to see that hole again. And then I just single crochet one. And then just continue on the other side. And once you've single crocheted inside your magic circle or your magic ring, you can just pull it again to make it tight. So just continue single crocheting into each hole you find until you get to the end of the triangle, and then we'll do the other ribbon, and that's just going to be the exact same thing that we did when we crocheted our first ribbon. Okay, we're almost to the end of the other side of the triangle, so just keep going until your single crochets reach the very end. So that's my last single crochet, and now we just repeat what we did on the other side and chain 60 or however many chains you decided to do for the length of your ribbon. Okay, now that I've done my 60 chains, I'm going to turn my work around and then single crochet into each of these chains just like we did with our first ribbon. Alright, we're almost at the end of our second ribbon, which means that our bandana is moments away from being finished. So I still have a few single crochets left to complete along the chain that I just made. And once you've finished your last single crochet, we just have to make sure that there's no gapping between the ribbon and the bandana by making a slip stitch. So I just like to find the closest hole to the point of the triangle and then just slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through the first hole and pull through the second loop. And now there's no gapping. And then to finish it off, we just yarn over and pull through so that when we cut it, there's a knot. We just need to weave in the two ends from our first string, or the beginning of the string or the yarn, and from the end. When you're weaving in the two ends, just make sure that they're on the same side of the bandana, because sometimes, you know, the end, even if we weave it in and even if it's all tucked in, it'll still show and poke through. So we want to make sure that the two weaved in ends are on the same side of the bandana so that we could place that side towards our head and it won't be showing on the outside. Personally, I don't really weave them in entirely. I kind of just weave them in away from the edge of the project. Feel free to weave it in better. I know that this is not really the best method, but I get kind of lazy when it comes to this. So my strategy is mostly just making sure it doesn't show when you wear it. So I guess I didn't really weave this end in. This is kind of the worst example of weaving in ends because I'm not really weaving them in. And there we go. So after I make sure that this side is nice and tight, I'm just going to cut it. And that's pretty much the pattern. Anyway, here's the final product. It's really, really beautiful. The color, I feel like on camera looks pretty much how it looks like in real life. Like it's a very beautiful, light, lavenderish, but like not too saturated color, like it's just gorgeous and I love it. And I would keep it, but it is a gift for a friend and I already know how to make it, so I can always make myself another one. Plus, like I said, that one skein of yarn that I have, this one, you can just buy one of these for $4 and it makes at least 7 bandanas. And if you already have dye like I do, you can just buy the white and then keep dyeing it different colors. This is truly like such an easy and fun pattern. I know it takes a while, but I feel like it's really worth it because like I've been saying a million times, this is just the perfect airy, light summer bandana, or if you live somewhere like me in Southern California where it's great weather all year, it's great for year round, to be honest. These are a great gift because they're super cheap, but they're super cute. And you don't really need to fit it perfectly to size, unless someone's head is like suspiciously small or large. I don't know, my head's kind of big, but it fits my head. I know it's a bandana and everybody knows how to put bandanas on, but I thought I should show you how I put it on anyway, just to show you the best way that makes it stay on my head all day. Put your hair up so that you're not accidentally tying all the hairs at the back of your neck when you're tying the strings into a ribbon. So make sure you know which side is meant to go inside, which should be where your ties kind of show from when I weaved in the ends but didn't really. And then you just tie it in a ribbon. And then lastly, before I put my hair down, I like to bobby pin it on each side. And the great thing is because since there's already holes in the pattern, once you bobby pin it, you can kind of like push it inside one of the holes so that you can't see it. You can see it a little bit, but it's not really enough to matter. And then it's ready to be worn out and about during your day. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.